Coming up on Arirang News, the South Korean government details the vaccine rollout to start later this month. 750,000 people to get vaccinated by March, starting with healthcare workers and some people in nursing homes. South Korea's exports in the first 10 days of February were up almost 70% from a year earlier, led by a rebound in memory chips and automobiles. And coming on the back of Wall Street's extended rally and the holiday weekend, South Korea's main index closes Monday with a gain of 1.5%. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. The number of new COVID-19 cases reported on Monday in South Korea remained in the 300s, though the authorities note that fewer tests were done over the holiday weekend. The police today raided the headquarters of a church group in Daejeon, linked to hundreds of cases, on suspicion that they've been breaking the rules. Han Sung-woo reports.
South Korea reported 344 new COVID-19 cases on Monday, the third day in a row the daily figure has remained in the 300s. 323 of Monday's cases were locally transmitted, with Seoul and the surrounding area accounting for close to 80% of them. Those cases include cluster infections at a family gathering in Yeoju, a savings bank in Seongnam, and several hospitals throughout the greater Seoul region. Meanwhile, police on Monday raided the International Mission church headquarters in Daejeon and seized hard drives and documents over suspected violations of social distancing measures. Facilities belonging to the missionary group have so far been linked to more than 400 COVID-19 cases. Authorities are also on high alert over the spread of more contagious variants. South Korea has identified 94 cases of the UK, South Africa, and Brazil variants since December. To prevent any further infections, even those exempt from quarantine arriving from all countries are required to be tested at temporary living quarters starting Monday. South Korea's total number of COVID-19 cases now stands at 83,869. There have been 5 more deaths, raising the death toll to 1,527. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
And South Korea has laid out detailed plans for vaccine rollout later this month and going into March. The vaccines will be for patients and staff at nursing homes, then hospital workers and COVID-19 response staff. The AstraZeneca vaccine will be offered first, but the government's decided to give it only to people younger than 65. Lee Kyung-eun has the latest.
South Korea will start COVID-19 vaccinations on February 26, aiming to inoculate some 757,000 people by March. The AstraZeneca vaccine and Pfizer vaccine will be used in these first vaccinations. But revealing the detailed plan on Monday, the government said that at this time, the AstraZeneca vaccine won't be given to those over 65 years old. The upper age limit comes amid concerns over the vaccine's efficacy on the elderly due to insufficient clinical data.
It is important to increase the overall vaccination rate in order to achieve our ultimate goal. But the controversy over the AstraZeneca vaccine's efficacy on the elderly could hurt that rate as it could decrease the public's acceptance of the vaccine.
The government could include the elderly after reviewing additional data from AstraZeneca, which is expected next month. That leaves the vaccine to be first offered to some 272,000 patients and staff in nursing hospitals and care homes, but only those who are under 65 years old. Heading into March, some 350,000 workers at general hospitals and 78,000 COVID-19 response staff, like quarantine and contact tracing workers, will receive their first shots. Simultaneously, Pfizer's vaccine will be offered to 55,000 COVID-19 frontline medical workers. For AstraZeneca's vaccine, nursing hospitals and general hospitals will carry out inoculations on site. But a team of staff will visit care homes for the elderly with restricted mobility. COVID-19 response workers could get their first shots at the district's public health centers. Frontline medical workers will get their Pfizer vaccine on site or at the state-designated vaccination centers that are equipped with a cold chain system. Young-eun, Arirang News.
The South Korean health authorities have eased the rules a little on social distancing. Restaurants, cafes, and gyms in the Seoul area will be allowed to have customers on the premises until 10 p.m., an hour later than now. Events like weddings can have more guests than before, too. Kim Do-yeon has the details.
South Korea's virus prevention measures have been dropped a notch. From Monday, the Seoul metropolitan area's social distancing level is down to level 2, and the rest of the country edges down to 1.5. This means many businesses have more freedom to operate. Restaurants and cafes in the capital area will be allowed to serve customers on site until 10 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. The rest of the country will have no such time restrictions. The same respective hours will be applied to gyms and indoor facilities. Bars and clubs nationwide can reopen, but only stay open until 10 p.m. with limited capacity depending on the size of the facility. Movie theaters, PC rooms, arcades, and theme parks will now have no opening hour restrictions, but theaters will still have to seat visitors apart. Weddings and funerals in the Seoul region will be able to host up to 99 people, up from the current limit of 49. Outside Seoul, that number will be up to 499 people. In addition, the gathering ban of 5 or more people has been eased slightly for immediate families. Before the easing, the rule applied to anyone with different legal addresses, but now the rule won't apply to a group of parents and children. That means that even if someone lives apart from their parents, they will be able to see them face to face. However, the exception doesn't apply to siblings. The Lunar New Year special virus prevention period measures affecting train ticket sales and hotels have also been lifted. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Researchers in the United States have identified 7 new variants of COVID-19 that seem to have originated in the U.S. and could be more contagious. The New York Times reported on their study, posted online on Sunday, saying it shows a mutation that each of the variants acquired on its own. The mutation affects the virus's spike proteins in a way that makes them more easily activated when they get close to a human cell. The Times reports that the researchers have started experiments to find out whether the mutation really does make a difference to infectiousness. They'll need much bigger samples to know how prevalent the variants are and where they came from, because the samples so far are too small. South Korea's exports in the first 10 days of this month were up nearly 70% compared to the same period last year on a strong rebound in shipments of cars and memory chips. Chips were up almost 58% and cars were up more than 100%. Kim Jae-hee has the details.
South Korea's exports in the first 10 days of this month soared compared to same period last year. According to preliminary data from the Korea Customs Service on Monday, exports came to $18 billion in the first 10 days of February. This is up 69.1% on year. Factoring in the greater number of working days at the start of this month compared to last February, the daily average was up by 39.3% on year. Exports of semiconductors were up almost 58% on year. Automobiles were up by more than 100%, and petroleum products were up by almost 38%. By destination, exports to China rose almost 66%. Shipments to the U.S. increased by more than 91%, and exports to the EU rose by more than 126%. The Korea Customs Service says exports so far this year have been doing better than last year.
Despite a slight recovery in third and fourth quarters last year, South Korea's exports were down 5.4% in 2020 due to the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. So far this year, exports have risen on year. They were up 11.4% in January and up 22.8% from the start of the year to February 10th.
A separate report released by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Monday also shows exports of automobiles in January rebounded by 29.5% in terms of units and more than 40% in terms of value, mainly due to the base effect compared to the same month last year. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
The online market for food and groceries in South Korea saw explosive growth last year in the pandemic. According to Statistics Korea, online orders totaled nearly $40 billion, an on-year increase of 62.4%. Food delivery got the biggest boost, rising by more than 75%, followed by farm produce, meat, and fisheries at 71%. Shopping by mobile phone in general last year went up 70%. A special concert is going to be held next month to celebrate 30 years of diplomatic ties between South Korea and Russia. It'll be broadcast live on March 2nd from both countries at once, the singers taking turns. Korean artists, including soprano So Sun-young, will perform at the Daejeon Center for the Performing Arts. Tickets to go in person will be distributed through a drawing and will cost just 1,000 won, less than $1. You can register on the Daejeon Center website. The show will also be broadcast live on Naver TV. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news on this Monday, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Yang Jun-seok, Professor of Economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, Happy New Year. Good to have you back on.
Happy New Year.
Well, stocks in New York are rising session after session as we celebrated the Lunar New Year in Korea. All three main indices on Wall Street rose to new record highs. Today, the trading resumed in Korea. The Kospi also logged a big gain. Bring us up to speed on the markets, Professor.
Okay, well, the Dow rose 1% for last week. S&P and NASDAQ rose 1.2% and 1.7% last week. And as you mentioned, they all hit all-time highs on Friday. This is attributed to fourth quarter earnings being higher than expected, Biden's stimulus coming, and the vaccination that is on process in the United States. But there are worries by some analysts that the markets are already too high. The markets have shrugged off a 6-month low consumer sentiment index, so the markets seem to be more optimistic than pessimistic. The European markets, the French CAC, German DAX, and British FTSE, they all fell midweek last week, but rose toward the end of last week. DAX is heading to a 5-year high. FTSE rose on Friday as well, but because they're dealing with minus 9.9% growth in 2020, they haven't reached back to the mid-January highs. Asian markets came back after the Lunar New Year's. They all rose significantly today, presumably because the U.S. market is doing so well. Most notably, Shanghai rose by 1.4% and Nikkei rose by 1.9%. Kospi and Kosdaq has been doing well today as well. Kospi rose by 1.5%. It was led by foreign purchases, and it was also led by SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics as U.S. reports shortages of crucial semiconductors. So the semiconductor prices globally has been rising. Kosdaq rose by 1.8% today, and it was led by purchases by institutions and foreigners.
And in the meantime, Bitcoin is as volatile as ever. It's down significantly from yesterday, but still not far off of its recent highs. It's still a gain so far this year of around 70%. What's driving it higher, and do you think the rally will last?
Okay, well, the reasons are similar to the stock market. We have unprecedented liquidity in the market because of the very loose monetary policy by almost all advanced countries' central banks. The interest rates are historically low, so people are putting their money into a stock market, housing market, bonds, or even baseball cards. Now, Bitcoin has been going up significantly more than these other assets because, well, Bitcoin has no central bank or government authority to rein in excesses. It has no central bank to try to control the rise in prices or inflation in Bitcoin assets. And Bitcoin has no historical record, so there is no real anchor for Bitcoin. So it's entirely driven by psychological factors, by people who want to buy, demand Bitcoins. So in a sense, it's a purely bubble asset, and that is showing up in the very high price fluctuations. Last March, it was at $5,165, March 14th. That was the low. Then it started rising from there. It accelerated significantly in November, and it rose to a high of $40,676 in January. Then, because of their concerns about overheating, it fell to $30,418 by January 22nd. But then Elon Musk said that he liked Bitcoin, so now it's up to $48,681 at the end of trading day yesterday on Sunday. So you can see how how volatile this Bitcoin is, and it's driven entirely by psychology of the market. So in that sense, well, it could go higher because the high liquidity is expected to continue this year, but it'll be entirely driven by psychological factors. So if people are optimistic, it'll go up even more. But once people get a bit pessimistic, expect the Bitcoin prices fall by at least a few $1,000s.
It sure does move fast. All right, Professor, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thanks so much for sharing your insights with us, and we'll catch up again later this week.
Thank you.
And that does it for this newscast. Thank you for watching.